Thank you so much for joining us for From Data to Done, 10 PowerPoint timeline tips that are going to save you hours. I'm Chris from the Office Timeline team, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We're thrilled to bring you this collaborative webinar between Office Timeline and Rebel's Guide to PM. So now that we've set the stage, let's do a quick round of introductions so you know who you're here with today. I'll start really quick. My name is Chris Dunlap. I'm a customer education strategist here at Office Timeline. And for those of you that might be new to us, just a little bit about us. We help professionals create clear, beautiful project visuals right inside PowerPoint. So if you're making timelines, roadmaps, Gantt charts, our goal is to make it fast and simple so that you can save a lot of time and impress your stakeholders. But I'll pass it over to Elizabeth and Eddy to do a little bit of an introduction. Elizabeth, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. Today, I have worked as a project manager for over 20 years, and I've been saying over 20 years for some years now. So I do the same kind of job that many of the people who will be watching this and joining in with us today will do. So I work in the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent, and I manage projects. I also write books. And as Chris has said, I have a website called Rebel's Guide to Project Management with lots of information about real world projects on there.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And Eddy?
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you virtually here. I'm the founder of Office Timeline. A funny thing I tell people sometimes is that I've probably looked at more timelines than anybody on planet Earth because I've been doing this for a while. And before this, I was a project manager or program manager, as Microsoft used to call them, for about 15 years at Microsoft.
Thank you so much, Eddy. I'll start by looking at some common pain points that come up when creating project visuals, things that I think most of us have wrestled with at one point or another. Then we will move into the heart of the session, a live demo where we'll share 10 productivity tips that are going to help you go from that raw data to polished professional timelines in just a fraction of the time. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A, so you'll have a chance to get your questions answered directly. Like I mentioned, we'll answer throughout, but some of them we might flag to answer live so that everyone can benefit from the answers. Great. With that, I will pass it over to Elizabeth to get us started on those common pain points.
Thank you. Those of you who've met me before will probably know that I manage multiple projects and they all run concurrently, and I end up context switching a lot. And one of the biggest challenges is reporting across those projects in a way that makes sense to stakeholders. Because, as I'm sure you know, not everybody wants a Gantt chart with 300 lines. Sometimes they just want a clean timeline slide that shows where we are, what's coming up, and what might be at risk. And I find PowerPoint quite difficult. And I wanted to share with you today the five of the top reasons why I find it hard to format PowerPoint charts, to see if any of you share my pain. And the first reason I have is that they take forever to format manually. What seems to happen is I get asked the night before to come up with a graphical version of our plan, and you end up with something like what you can see on the screen below me here. It's boring. It's quite inaccurate, actually, because, what project has 6 activities, but nothing else fits on the page. So it's all rolled up and there's huge chunks of activity. And because it takes so long to create the shapes and try to line everything up, before you know it, you've spent 45 minutes and all you've got is some coloured boxes. So you could give me a thumbs up if you've ever spent way too long on a slide. I want to be able to pull data from a simple table or an Excel sheet. But wouldn't it be great if we could just pull data from a simple table or an Excel sheet and have a professional looking timeline with a few clicks? I want it to look like I spent hours on it, but I definitely don't want to spend hours on it. So we need a solution which is fast, because I don't know about you, because we don't have time to be manually formatting slides these days. The second challenge, as you can see on the screen, when we don't have access to, or we're worried about timelines not looking great, we revert to using tables, which have too much information compared to the timeline that I just showed you, which didn't have enough information. And again, these are really boring. And this is the project reporting that I'm doing at the moment actually only includes 2 milestones. We've got a table and it shows you the next upcoming milestone and the go live milestone, because we've only got space for 2 milestones. So that's really bad for trying to highlight where we may be having sticky points in our delivery schedule. And in native PowerPoint, you're stuck with the generic shapes that don't update well. Milestones get lost unless you format every one. So we need a way to make dates stand out especially when exec stakeholders need to be making decisions. And in fact, on one of the projects I'm doing at the moment, we've specifically been asked, when do I need to be making these decisions by? And so trying to communicate that in a way that is easy to grab their attention has been really difficult. Timelines do grab attention because people skim text. They might not read a paragraph on dependency risk, but they'll look at the timeline and they'll say, why is that milestone red? That makes it become a conversation starter, which is what I want. Because I'm not just trying to tick a box. I'm sure none of you are either. We're trying to get our projects delivered. We want stakeholders engaged. We want them to unblock problems. We want them to take decisions so that we can keep the project moving. And in my experience, they don't necessarily want the details. When I say they, I mean our exec stakeholders. Some of them do want the details, depending on who your stakeholders are. But typically, the higher up the org chart you go, the more clarity you need to provide, but with less detail. So we need a way to make those dates stand out. The third problem for me is that PowerPoint isn't built for showing multiple work streams. I had to take the personal data and, the project sensitive data out of this spreadsheet before I could screenshot it to share with you. But it's a real spreadsheet that I'm using on my project. And you can see that we've got these multiple strands. Does it work? It's okay for me to manage week by week activity, what's happening on every day, but it is useless as a communication tool. It goes on so far because the project's not scheduled to finish until Q1 next year. So it's not something that we could easily share with people. And if I'm supporting a steering group, I need a way to visualize that bigger picture without dragging everyone into Microsoft Project or a spreadsheet. And trying to do it manually on PowerPoint, I've just ended up with something that looks like a spaghetti junction. There's overlapping lines. I'm color coding everything by hand. There's no way to automate anything, and it's really quite messy. How many of you have got projects where you've got multiple substrands? So perhaps it's work streams or sub-projects, or you're in a program with multiple projects under it, or perhaps you're in a PMO role and you're presenting across a portfolio. So I want to be able to show different work streams in swim lanes or color-coded by owner, and that makes spotting issues so much easier. So we need to be able to create roadmaps to show that bigger picture, because Excel's just not good enough. What you can see on screen now, this is a timeline that I actually got a colleague to make for me because it was too hard. It was too hard for me to do by myself. And I just don't have the time. And I don't know about you, but I am focusing on activities that drive my project forward where I can add the most value, and spending an afternoon fiddling about in PowerPoint is not one of those. So building timelines from scratch takes a long time when your updates are quite small. So to justify the amount of work for a small update is quite difficult. One date change means every box needs to shuffle along, which means I have to, well, what I end up doing is procrastinating, really. I just delay until I really have to send out the steering deck, and then I'm moving everything, or I try and find someone else to help, because that activity of trying to shuffle everything when you've only got a small change that needs to be made, it's quite painful. So I'm not using a timeline like this to manage my project. It's not replacing my project management software. I've still got an action log. I've got risks everywhere. I've got a resource planner, all that stuff. Perhaps you've got a Kanban board. Perhaps you've got a Jira board for day-to-day management, dealing with tickets. You've probably got software that you're using for client management. But there are still times where we need to show information visually. So I want templates that I can reuse, that can be updated quickly, and automations that mean that if one date changes, everything just automatically flows through like it does in my Gantt chart software. Projects change a lot, right? So we need updates to be easy. And this is one of the things that PowerPoint doesn't exactly excel at. The fifth challenge I wanted to share with you is that even good data can look amateurish. And again, I've taken out all the the project-related data, which makes this look even more dull and boring than it did before. But something like this is too simple. It's just not detailed enough for what executives want, and that really undermines the credibility. So I've had slides where the data looks right, but the visual looks clunky. Perhaps there's been too much text. Perhaps the shapes don't look quite right, or some of them are slightly bigger than the others. I know when you drag a bar, it gets wider as well as longer, and then it doesn't match the width on other places on the slide. Timelines run off the edge of the screen. The one I've got in my steering deck that I'm sharing next week ends in November. but now we're not delivering until December. So don't know quite how I'm going to squeeze another column on the end there, but never mind. So you cannot underestimate how much presentation matters. The more senior you get, or the more business critical your project, the higher the expectation that your materials look professional. And you want to be seen as a safe pair of hands, someone who knows what's going on and what work there still is to be done. So we want timelines that look exec ready, ideally impressive enough for stakeholders to just take the slide and put it into their own deck for their own board meetings. So give me a quick show of virtual hands or thumbs up. Do you think that your timelines are exec ready? Is that something that, or you can type yes. We've got people raising hands. We've got some thumbs up. We've got some people in the chat saying no. Brooke saying yes, because she already uses Office Timeline. Hooray! So that's positive. But yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't put your timeline on screen at the CFO meeting without tweaking it first, then you are definitely not alone. Because in a world where we're trying to cut through the noise and communicate fast, visuals make a difference. Our attention span, and I include our stakeholders in this, and the important stakeholders particularly, is so small. So Office Timeline helps me to do that as well as Brooke. And I think Chris in the chat earlier said that he was a user as well. So it's one of the tools that helps me look, I try to look calm, clear and credible, even when I've got the 6 projects that we're juggling. So I would say overall PowerPoint has some serious challenges for project managers, and there are probably other reasons I've not even thought of or shared here, and you can drop your extra challenges into the chat because I'm sure there will be other people who are listening to this who are sharing similar challenges to you. These are some of the things that I think we're using as a community of project professionals that we're using roadmaps for. And in the chat, some of these things came up, didn't they? RFPs, statement of works, focusing on your critical path, planning and design. But from scheduling, launch plans, onboarding timelines, roadmaps, so much of our work relies on having a detailed set of dates and a visual that we can track progress against. So as you'll see, Office Timeline in a minute, it can help us create all of those more easily. So we know native PowerPoint has limitations, but we still need to make timelines in PowerPoint. Stakeholders are short on time. They don't want to use a dashboard or software that they're not familiar with. They're certainly not going to go and self-serve and go off and access information unless you kind of spoon feed it to them. And because PowerPoint offers clarity and accessibility over Excel or project dashboards, slides are portable into other meetings and other formats. So knowing about the limitations of PowerPoint and the fact that we still have to use it, I'm going to hand over to Eddy now to talk about the solution to those challenges with some PowerPoint tips and tricks from Office Timeline.
I think so much, Chris and Elizabeth. It's Elizabeth's a hard act to follow because her accent is so perfect and beautiful. You guys have to listen to an American talk now. So I am going to show you how you take data and turn it into a really beautiful timeline very, very quickly. And so the 10 tips are going to revolve around these 3 categories of bringing your data wherever it is into PowerPoint as a beautiful timeline slide, and then to manipulate it to make it yours. And then the other bucket is if you don't have data existing in a project plan somewhere, and you want to start something from scratch, which I find quite often people do, I'll show you some tips around how you could do that using Office Timeline. And then finally, I'll kind of wrap it up with using templates and themes that will really save you time, because when you can define your own custom templates, your own custom themes, then it becomes just a very quick workflow where it's like bring your data into your theme, tune it a little bit, and your timeline is ready to go. I used to present to executives all the time at Microsoft, and everything Elizabeth mentioned was actually true. That's how the idea was born, which is difficult to update. And you never want to show. I made the mistake of showing a detailed project plan once to the VP, and that is a rat hole that I couldn't get out of. Right, so this is how it's born, and the idea is very simple. It behaves very much like the rest of PowerPoint when you install it. And we've got a ribbon here. When you press the new button, you get a new timeline wizard that lets you do a number of different things. You can start from scratch. Use a theme or a template, or import your data. And data typically sits, right? I saw people mention Excel, P6, Smartsheet. I'm sure there's Plan B user, Jira everywhere, right? And I'm actually going to show you a project plan. This is something that I replicated from an actual clinical timeline. Things have been changed here, but your data can often look quite complex, and there's a lot of sophistication here. And this is why you'd never want to show this in a review, but yet you need that roadmap or that one-page kind of overview. So I'm going to show you how you turn data like this into a timeline. And if you're using project, right, we also have a project demo that I can show. So here's what I've done here. This project file is actually a template that ships with Microsoft Project. It's a software development plan, and it has roughly 80 or 90 tasks on here, about 85. What I've done to it is I've added a few columns called swim lane and sub-swim lane and exact timeline. And these are just columns that you can insert a column and give it a name. And the idea is that the project plan can then be categorized into swim lanes and sub-swim lanes. So let me just briefly show you what that looks like. So if I start from scratch here and go to edit timeline, I can add a swim lane, I can add sub-swim lanes, and you can start to add tasks and milestones here, as you can see. And so this is the idea behind swim lanes and sub-swim lanes. And so if you're looking at your project data, well, you can add these columns, assign these rows to particular swim lanes or sub-swim lanes, and that way when we import it, we'll automatically create that for you. And then the third piece is exact timeline. So what I've found is that people often have hundreds, if not thousands of tasks, and you want to mark ahead of time things that you want to bring in. So you can filter on this during the import process. So let me show you how you can turn this project plan into a timeline slide very quickly. So we go to import here, and we're going to import from project. We can drag and drop your file here. You can click browse, and that's the file that I have open there. So one of the first tips, obviously, is importing, but then it's mapping your columns. So your project file, and we load it up in the Office timeline. We read the first 100 rows, and we give you a preview of it, and we automatically map the title, start date, end date. And in case you have many different dates and columns, you can click on the drop down and say, hey, Office timeline, this is my start date, and this is my end date. And one of the tips is if you label your swim lane, all swim lane, and sub-swim lane, we will automap it for you. If you don't, you can always tell Office timeline that, it will show you a text field. It will say, this is my swim lane or sub-swim lane, but that's a tip, right? Use swim lane, use sub-swim lane. So if we look at this, we open the file. Office timeline automatically mapped the columns, and you can change them if you wish. And then on the next step, you get to pick and choose the items that you want to bring in. And so we will load your entire data set in here, and you can pick and choose either parents in entire categories there. So you can see this is like, I can pick parent and children. You can pick individual items, etc. You can kind of look at just level 2 or level 3. But my favorite thing to do is to use this filter on the top right here. And that's because I've already tagged all the items in project, as you saw with a yes or no, or mostly a yes. So you go to filter, and I'm going to choose the exact timeline conditional equals to a Y and apply that. And this way I can bring in everything. By the way, one of the things, let me clear this filter. One of the things I had done is I had selected a bunch of things already, and the filters actually apply in addition to. So exact time equals Y. And now when I select it, you can see it's 17 out of the 86 items that we're selecting. And some are tasks and some are milestones. Some belong to swim lanes and some are outside of swim lanes. When I press import, what happens is we'll read the file, we'll tell PowerPoint to generate this visual, and you end up with a timeline that looks pretty nice. It gets you maybe 80% of the way there, right? So with that one import from project, and having some bit of work that we did ahead of time, we turn the project plan into a really nice looking timeline. And then from here, you can style it very quickly. So I'm going to click on the time scale and go to settings and say, I want that to be in, maybe it should be quarters, and I want the second band to be in months. So you get a preview of that. And so now we have quarters and months. And then you can go to edit timeline. And this is the drag and drop interface where you can move things around, where you can move the entire timeline. This is your slide that we represent. And I'll do things like maybe I'll rotate the swim lane headers, compress that a little bit. Might want to move this date up or move things around a little bit. You can reorder the swim lanes and sub-swim lanes. You could do quite a number of things that I'll get into a little bit later. And then you press save. And there you have it, right? Very quick. This is the template with a little bit of pre-work, and we import it, and it's right here as a PowerPoint slide. Now, the beautiful thing about this, once it's been imported, is it's linked to Microsoft Project. All you have to do is hit refresh data, and we'll find those differences immediately. And we don't automatically add the new items because you may have 50 new items, but you can say, give me everything. And by the way, it shows you what's on slide and what's in project. So you can see the title, this is on the slide, and that's in the project file. And this is the duration and end date that was changed and the side was removed. So then you press refresh, and the timeline gets updated immediately. So you can see the title change, you can see the new thing that was added. So it's really, really easy. And what else is really nice about this is you're not just limited to what you've done here, right? You can actually have a hybrid slide. So when you click edit timeline, you can come in here and add your own swim lane. And maybe this is, a marketing swim lane. Maybe marketing needs to go over the top for some reason. You can also add your own milestones here. So maybe this will be exec review. And we'll put that somewhere after the scope is completed. We'll have an executive review. And so now you can see I have a hybrid slide. An exec review, as Elizabeth was saying, might need to be marked as red. And I'll change the date also to red and make it a bold. So that it's like, okay, this date, we're going to do an exec review, draws our attention to it. The other thing that is pretty neat about this is you're not stuck with what you've imported. This is flexible. So you can, let's say you need to bring some additional data that you forgot to in the first time. You go to refresh and you can say, show me things that are not imported. And you can then add, so we also have filter here as well. So you can filter if you've got a large data set, and I'm going to bring in a couple of items and hit refresh. And what you'll notice is that item came in there. I forgot which. I think these two items are the ones that it just brought in. So not only can you add your own stuff, you can bring things in, and you can remove things as well. So if your timeline needs change, you can say, well, I'm these two items, and hit refresh. And there's actually another little trick that I like to use. If you go to edit timeline, you can hide entire swim lanes and sub-swim lanes just by clicking on hide or clicking on something, clicking hide. And when you hide it, it goes into the edit data view, and it's got a little hidden icon. You can see the entire sub-swim lane was there. And when you unhide it, you see the picture updates when you do. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions. I'll show you a quick import from Excel as well.
That's great. Some people mentioned being able to see the export again, so I think that would be perfect. And then maybe when you get a chance, just kind of show what that visualization looked like in project again, so we can kind of see the difference.
Okay. Yeah. So when you import your data, it's a one-way tool. So the source of truth is always Project Excel, Smartsheet, Jira, or Rike, because that's where we import from. And if you make changes to the timeline slide, which you can, right, because we've imported it, even data that you've imported, we can actually make changes to that and move things around, hit save. And then when you go to refresh, what happens is we will find that discrepancy and we'll say, hey, it is this on the slide, and that's what the project source of truth says. And when we hit refresh, we'll resync to the source of truth, which is project or wherever you imported from. If you have created data yourself or you've manipulated this and you've made sufficient changes to this, you can always go to export to Excel. So you can store that snapshot. And then you have an export. It's a really nice little Excel file that it creates. But one of the tips that I have for you is you can actually just click on any of the three dots and click copy data. And when you do that in Excel, you can then paste it and we'll paste your data. So you're not stuck with data that's locked into a visual. You can get it out of Office Timeline if you need to. Okay, what was the other question, Chris? I think I forgot one.
Someone was interested in seeing the visualization that you had in Project versus what you just... Yeah.
Okay, so here it is, Microsoft Project, right? This was all created by Microsoft Project as a template, but of course your timelines and data looks quite similar. I do want to show you an import from Smartsheet and then Excel because some users here, I saw a bunch of thumbs up, but I love showing this because it is so messy, right? And this is reality. I've seen so many project plans from so many different industries and customers over the years, and it's quite common to have 200 to 300 items and there to be quite a bit of sophistication. The same technique was applied here in Smartsheet. You've got a swim lane, a subswim lane, and actually I learned this from a customer. In Smartsheet, you can have a column that you can insert that is a checkbox. You can turn it into a star, and then that could be a timeline item, and you just click on it, right? So let me show you what that would look like here. So I'm going to import from Smartsheet. I've already logged into my account. We'll pull the first 100 rows, and we'll automatically map everything. And you can see the key timeline item comes in as a true or false. That's how the APIs send that data over to us for check marks. And again, right, you can look at levels here, but when we go to the filter, and then I'm going to filter on key timeline item equals true, hit apply, and I will take the key items that I believe are really important to present on this executive review, and we'll pull all that data, turn it into a timeline. And the idea is we get you 80% of the way there, right? And so once you're there, then you can start to make changes. And some of these things I think we're going to automate over time, just do it for you. For example, well, mostly it's looking pretty good, but I like to add the right time scale. So I'm going to click on this time scale, and then this time it probably should be in years and quarters. So I'll update that. And then maybe we're talking about themes in a little bit, but we can certainly apply a different theme when there's a custom theme that you've created or something that ships with Office Timeline. So we've got a number of different themes to pick one. That's one of my favorites. I'll pick that. And again, it's linked to Smartsheet, and you can do all the things that I did with Excel. It was almost nearly the same, right? Very, very flexible. Lots of updates that can happen almost instantly. You don't have to redraw any of the content. We'll get into coloring and styling in a little bit, but the same process goes for Excel. You can import from Excel into Office Timeline. And in fact, I've got a number of sheets here that you can import, but I wanted to show you something a bit more complex thing here. This sheet here was an export from a plan view, and it's a portfolio view, and it had lots of very large projects that were basically summarized into one. Smartsheet has the ability to do that as well. It's absolutely brilliant. You can take 50 projects and create one dashboard report and roll up the items that you want, and you can have a one-page overview, even though you may have 10 different project managers managing 20 or 30 different projects, and then everything gets rolled up into one dashboard report that can be imported as a timeline into Office Timeline. There's an article on how to do that. But let me just do a very quick import from that file there, the plan view export. Same concept, right? You pick your sheet, you map your data. In Excel, we look for row IDs, and it's just something you can read about. It's nice to have row IDs so that we can track your data very easily, and then bring everything in, you do an import, and it's easy as that. And then you get to style it, right? There's all kinds of styling options that I haven't shown you, but I will. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up on importing and syncing. I think that's the most time-saving feature of Office Timeline, is like make a beautiful slide in seconds by importing and then link it to your source data. Okay, so the other use case, the other category is starting from scratch. It's so interesting to me, even though I've worked with a lot of PMs and quite sophisticated PMs, and there's almost always the case where you need to start from scratch. So you can press start from scratch in the new timeline wizard. And certainly if you're list-oriented and data-oriented, you can choose to work on this list, right? You can pick whether you want it to be a milestone or a task and pick your color and your date. But I am very visual, so I like to add milestones and tasks right from the bar here. And then you can click on plus symbols here, like plus milestones, plus tasks. And it'll be the same here. And before you know it, you've got something that you can drag and drop, and you can change the end date and show you the exact date that you're landing. Drag the entire thing. It's a very, very quick and easy way to create your time. And we have dependencies, which I'll cover later, but we cover all the types of dependencies that you expect, right? Finish to start being the most common, but then you've got start to start, finish to finish, and you grab these handles and you can make some of these changes like that. So that's where you do start from scratch. Super easy. And then you've got, so when you go to edit timeline, you can drag the timescale, position it exactly where you want it to be. So start from scratch is, you can manually type it, you can visually add it, you can then drag and drop using the edit time drag and drop wizard, or you can copy and paste data. So let me copy and paste this. So we will even copy and paste swim lanes and sub-swim lanes if you have that. So let's go back here, go to new, from scratch, and I'll delete that empty row because I don't need it. And it's this little tiny paste button. We need to make it more obvious. But if you paste your data, you notice we put in the swim lanes and put the items in there. You put the milestones on the task, on the style pane. And then you can start to do things like move the dates around, put things in a row. Maybe I'll move that to the other side. So you can put milestones in a row. You can put milestones on top of tasks. So you can snap them above or below, or put them right in the middle. You just got to go a little bit slower. You can also put tasks in a row. So let's say we can put the dates above and below, and we'll put these two in a row together, and we'll put the title up above. So lots of flexibility at the edit time. Starting from scratch, entering your data, copying, pasting. This is not linked to Excel. So that was the key tip there. And I want to show you how you can style things very quickly, not just do layouts. So Elizabeth mentioned, right, you want to draw somebody's attention or eye to a particular milestone or a task that's important. All you have to do is click on a milestone or a task, and we will find it's context sensitive, the style pane here. So if we click on a task, you'll see that we're now on the task, and when we can change the shape and the color and the title, all kinds of options. We've got a lot. It may seem a little bit too much at first, but I promise you, once you get used to it, you'll really appreciate it. So you click on a milestone, for example, and you can change that color to red. You can change the shape to a diamond, and that instead of having to click on the date again, you can just click on the date and say, you know what, I want to change the date format to that, and save it. and you'll see the date format changes to July 16. So coloring can happen, shape changes, date formats, all of the styling options happen using the style pane here. And we have a really nice feature called Apply to All. And you can pick and choose what formatting you want to apply to everything. So let's say I want that. Actually, let me make the shape a little bit thicker. So I'm going to make it a regular shape. And so I make changes to one item, and then I can hit Apply to All and say shape and size to everything. And you can see that all the tasks got that. Or let's say I want to make all of my milestones into green, and then I want them all to be diamonds. So then I can hit Apply to All, shape and color, and the size, and Apply to All, and all that happens. Now, another tip that's one of my favorites, we did spend time building this into Office Timeline, is you can shift click on different objects. It doesn't matter, tasks or milestones, and use the PowerPoint color picker to make those changes. So you can even make outline changes, and you can see now we've got, maybe I'll make the shape fill lighter. So I've changed the outlines, changed the fill. If you go to edit timeline here, you'll notice that we pick up those changes for you. So you can very quickly make changes to colors. And actually, my favorite PowerPoint feature is the Format Painter. It's like you're sprinkling, fairy dust. If you double click on it, it locks it in. So then I'm going to change that. Whatever you want to do, you can apply and reapply formats there. So that is a tip on formatting. So you can change shapes, colors, outlines, date formats. You can show dates, hide dates. You can use the PowerPoint color picker. You don't have to use the Office Timeline color picker. And then a couple of tips that are in this bucket of starting from scratch and styling are that you can make changes on the slide. So let's say you want to make a title change. You can then hit accept changes, and we will register that. And if you go to edit data or edit time, you'll see that it shows up as a title change. You can make some quick changes to dates. So let's say I want that to be in 2026 and hit accept. It will redraw the entire timeline. So every shade and all the items get updated. So that way you don't have to go to edit timeline, look for the item, drag it, change it. You could do it right on the slide. You could do things like hide them just by deleting it. It won't actually delete it. It will hide it under edit data. You hit accept changes and we can redraw that. So you can hide milestones, with lanes, tasks, dates, etc. And those are some quick tips there. Any questions before I switch over to themes and templates?
Couple questions for you, Eddy. Someone asked if there was the ability to adjust the time scale to just show a specific time period, even when the data is outside of that period.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's one of our pop requests. I hope we implement it. It's not available yet as a feature. So if I go to time scale, one of the things that we've added that was, I think, a number one feature request is to give you a lot more fidelity on the amount of data that you can show across one time scale. So we've done that. The other option, if we go under settings, you can uncheck automatic. So it's recommended to leave it to automatic because we don't like to zoom in on a particular part. Today, one of the things you can do is you can zoom out, but not in. So we'll let you, and what I've done is I've zoomed out here. So you can add additional space. You can't focus on an area. I hope that we'll eventually do that. It's in our backlog somewhere, but I can't promise anything on these webinars because my team will shoot me. So that's, I would say not yet, but eventually.
Awesome, Eddy. Thank you so much. And a couple of open questions. One was regarding being able to see plan versus actual. So I don't know if you have that planned for your demonstration, or maybe just see a quick example.
So you reminded me of that. So let me show you here. So let's say I go to templates and I want to look at some plan versus actual templates, and I'll look at this construction schedule. And you can see this is a feature that I think it was in the top 5 feature requests for a very long time, and we decided to build it, and people absolutely love it. And the idea here is, in order to turn it on, all you do is go to Advanced Tools and just turn it on. And you can import data, planned and actual data from Excel. We don't support it from Project yet. We're waiting to see what kind of demand we get before we build that. But essentially, you turn it on, and what you end up with, and actually, let me turn it on this one here. So you end up with 2 separate bars, right? The thin bar, that was the planned bar, and the thicker bar, that's the actual bar. And we automatically color coded for you. So if you were ahead of schedule, you get green. If you're behind schedule, and you get red. But you can certainly change your conditional formatting, right? So there's a lot of options in the style pane for how you change your conditional formatting, whether you want to show baseline colors or not. But one of the coolest things is if you have dependencies turned on, we've created dependencies, and let's say in this project, footings and foundations takes longer, you can see that the planned data still stays in everything here turned red, but before installation still happened on time. So you can kind of create what if scenarios, like what happens if footing slips, but maybe you can shrink the foundation and see the things that will start to slip and not slip. So it's really helpful. And one tip that I always give people is you can duplicate this slide. Even if you've imported the data, both items will maintain their link. So let's say this particular slide was imported from Smartsheet. I can then duplicate it. So now I have duplicates. If I go to edit timeline here, and then I turn on plan versus actual and dependencies, and then I start to create some dependencies there. So let's do a few dependencies. You can immediately see how things can start to shift right away. And what you have is the source, the original one that you're not changing because it's tied to the Smartsheet. But this is maybe the second slide, maybe a what if scenario where you can kind of see very quickly. And so you can add plan versus actual to anything, whether you've imported it or created it on your own. And it's super helpful with dependencies. And if you're data oriented, you go to edit data, and you can see that we have planned end and start right here. And you can, if it's not visible, you can turn it on here as well, or you can actually, we've moved it. It used to be here. We just moved it to over here. So plan versus actual right there. Super, super helpful to have that feature, especially for planning. Especially, here's the fun thing. I remember in my so I used to do, our VPs always said, what just say you were going to do, and how are we doing this then plan? And that's why plan versus actual is such an important feature. Okay, want to be mindful of time, and I want to very briefly show you themes and templates. The difference between themes and templates is that themes are all the styles that you can have. So I want my date format to be this, my color palette to be that, the shape should be like this. And a template is essentially a data set that you have already. So for example, this is a template because it comes with all this data. And when I hit create timeline, then I get the actual data, and then I can start to make it mine. So that's one way you can start quickly is maybe you like one of the templates that we've created, and then you can double click to start changing the dates and titles and dragging things around and making it yours. The other thing that you can do is you can start with a theme that ships with Office template, or you can start with you can create your own custom themes. So if I go to themes here, so these are all the themes that we ship. There's a bunch of them just for creativity, just to kind of give you something to look at to say, well, maybe you like that style. But I think for the PMO, what we found is you mostly want to create your own custom theme. So when you go to this themes button, you can go to themes manager, and you can create a new theme, and you can call it whatever you like. And this will show up in your new timeline wizard. And what we do is we take the color palette from your existing slide. So if you have a corporate template, we will just absorb those colors and make those your default theme colors. And this is something that you can interact with. So you don't have to go hunting for what you're looking for. You can just say, you know what, I want to take all the tasks and make them into ellipses, and I want to make them grid. But maybe I want to take all the milestones and turn them into stars and make them, this color and a reddish color like that. So you have a lot of options. I think there's well over 100 options here. And when you hit create, you can share this with your teammates. So everybody's got that theme that they're working on. And then you can see, it gives you a preview. That's a timeline I had created. I'm just going to apply that theme to it. And we can apply films to any slide. And so you see this has a gel effect to it, right? It's like a nice 3D effect. It's one of the options that's like a little secret in Office Timeline. And it's applied all the star colors and shapes, etc. And when I go to new, I can use this. If I go to themes here, you can see my themes. That's the one that I have there. You can import data directly into it, or you can apply it later if you've already created a timeline. So I've shown you a lot of stuff. I think I went a little bit over, but I'm going to stop here and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eddy. We can dive into just some live Q&A, I think, right off the bat here, just to save time. Eddy, this might be for you. In edit data, can the date columns be sorted from newest to oldest or from oldest to newest?
So we used to have it, and it really confused people a lot. So we took it out. And then you end up with all these funky scenarios where people move things around, where things are not sorted chronologically. And then it became very complex for us to manage. So we just took it out. So unfortunately, no, we no longer have that. If we get more requests for it, we certainly consider it because we take feedback all the time. You can always press this little feedback button here and give us your feedback, and this gets tracked. We have us going into AI, we surface themes, be able to read individual responses as well. And so, please do give us feedback. Wherever you see this little feedback button, we've got it everywhere. We put it here. There's one here. He's in the new timeline. Was there some? I love your feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddy. And then one more here, and this probably just more for Office Timeline. A little bit about the plans that we have and what's included in those various plans.
Yeah, then we can go to officetimeline.com, and that'll not updates because that's where I go often. The updates has all the releases that we've got. We go pricing, and you can see all the different pricing plans here. Actually, I guess I'm saying like pricing. And then you go to the Windows version, so the online, and you can see the different plans that we have. You can see a visual difference between them of what you get. And then, of course, there's all the details of what's included. I would say that if you're in the PMO, very likely you want expert. So previously we only had 2 builds. It was light and plus. And we started getting so many requests from advanced project managers really around, the things that they wanted to do with creating custom themes, which took us a long time to build. It seems so easy, but it was actually quite complex to do plan versus actual and standardizing and building templates and themes. So we built one for expert users. And so you can take a look at the plans there. By the way, I wanted to show the coolest tip ever. I almost forgot, but it's something that I was playing with last night. You can go into ChatGPT, or Copilot can do it too. And you can say, hey, give me a project plan. Let me say for construction, if I can type right. And then you can say, give me about 25 items, include these callouts, and then categorize them into swim lanes and sub-swim lanes. So it's a very basic prompt. And then I forgot to tell it this, but it'll probably just tell me, and it'll say, like, give it to me as an Excel file. And you can then either copy, paste that, or import into Office Timeline. It's so brilliant that I don't think we just build it into Office Timeline. But until then, You could use Copilot or ChatGPT or any of the AI tools out there. And like, here's one that I actually did for a pharma, and it gave me such an incredibly accurate plan that it was shocking. And it makes sense, right? It has access to all of the industry stuff. So yeah, ask it to create that stuff for you and give it to you in Excel, and then you can import it or just copy and paste it, and it will work really, really well. So I should have shown this to you earlier, but I'm glad I tell you about it.
No problem, Eddy. Better late than never. I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen share for you so we can just do a little bit of wrap up for our folks. Thank you so much for sticking with us, everybody. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Eddy, for sharing all of that great information and all of those great tips. We hope everybody's walking away with a lot of good information and tips that'll help you save a ton of time and the next time you're building your project visuals. If you'd like to try Office Timeline for yourself, you can grab a free download right at officetimeline.com. We also have a library of free templates and step-by-step video tutorials to help you get started quickly. And if you need help or want to follow up directly with us, you can reach us at learning at officetimeline.com.